If you're interested in my videos, please subscribe. The Lion King became the most successful animated movie. So of course, after a few spin-offs and adaptations, it was time for a sequel. The first movie was inspired by Hamlet, so it made sense to take inspirations from Romeo and Juliet, another one of Shakespeare's most well-known stories, for its sequel. But that is not the only inspiration of this movie. The main inspiration of the first movie is Hamlet, but that is not the only one. The movie also got inspired by a lot more things. The core of The Lion King 2 is Romeo and Juliet, but it is also inspired by other things as well. The other most important inspiration of it is a story called The Manchurian Candidate, which is a story of a person who got raised and brainwashed by his mother, but after a few years he would realize that he is lied to. Even though Disney wanted to make more money from The Lion King, they were not willing to invest more money in the franchise. The sequel would not be on screen and instead it would get the direct-to-video treatment, which also means an even smaller team that had nothing to do with the creators of the first film had to work on it. The earliest draft of The Lion King 2 that I could find was written in the year 1995. Seemingly ideas of a sequel to The Lion King had been talked about even before The Lion King 1 was released on theaters. But it would go through some changes and delays, and at the year 1998, 4 years after the first movie, it was released. And although it was a commercial success by becoming one of the best-selling VHS releases of all time, it wasn't critically as successful as the first movie. Even though the team behind The Lion King 2 was ambitious, the project was doomed to live in the shadow of the original movie. Because when Disney started to make direct-to-video sequels, they did not a good job. So even years after that, no matter how high the quality of their future sequels would be, people would not like them that much. They were not willing to give the sequels a chance and started to believe that Disney has a sequel problem. While I agree that a lot of Disney sequels are nowhere near as good as the originals, I don't believe that every single Disney sequel is bad. There are a few sequels that are almost as good. For example, the topic of this video, The Lion King 2. It is not as beloved as the first movie. In fact, a lot of people hate it. They believe that The Lion King should have never become a franchise in the first place, because the whole point of The Lion King was teaching the audience about letting go of the past and going forward. It was about the circle of life. The movie ended like how it began, because the whole point of The Lion King was that it was never going to get a sequel. I disagree. While I can see where they are coming from, I am never against exploring an idea more, because there will always be something new to learn. The Lion King 2 started at where The Lion King 1 was left and expanded on its ideas. It is a great companion to the original movie because it can help you believe more on what it tried to tell you. If you hate The Lion King 2, I hope at the end you will at least respect it a little bit. So let's talk about the direct-to-video sequel to The Lion King, The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride. The sequel starts like the first movie, because it is an expanded version of the final scene of the first film. The future ruler of the kingdom is born, and the animals are approaching the Pride Rock to pay their respect. Rafiki shows the newborn of Simba and Nala, and the animals jump in joy. After that, Timon and Pumbaa tell each other how happy they are to kinda experience parenthood again. Just like the good old days, it is Timon, Pumbaa, and a little guy. That's when Rafiki tells them that it's actually a girl. Timon and Pumbaa are horrified and they faint as a result. Then the scene cuts to black and shows the name of the movie, The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, which I think is a smart name. The word pride has more than one meaning, and more than one of them are related to this movie. So the name of this movie has more than one meaning, and all of them are the correct answer. How this scene ends could just be a joke, but I think it wants to tell the audience that it will start like the first movie, but it won't end like the first movie. It will be similar enough to strengthen the lessons of the first movie, but it will also be different enough to teach new lessons as well. But how Timon and Pumbaa reacted when they realized that the cub is a she can also have meanings. Maybe they just think they can't be themselves in front of a girl, or maybe it's a bigger concern. That concern being the fact that it is called a kingdom and not a queendom, which is sexist and it makes me sad, but that's all that this movie mentions about how this kingdom works, and they won't bring it up again. The only time this franchise talks about it again was in The Lion Guard, but even there it was barely mentioned. If you haven't watched The Lion Guard, it is about Kyle, the second born of Simba and Nala and the younger brother of Kiara. In that show, still Kiara was considered the next ruler because she is the older one, which means in the Pride Lands, the next ruler is the firstborn and the gender does not matter. Or maybe the next ruler had to be male, but Simba broke the traditions because he believes in gender equality. I wanted this idea to be explored more, but I think that was the job of other projects like The Lion Guard and not this movie. But also, we do not know how canon the likes of The Lion Guard and 6 New Adventures are. So we don't really know that if Kiara is the only child or she has brother or brothers. The music you hear in this scene comes from the album Rhythm of the Pride Lands, which is some sort of a sequel to the soundtrack album of the first movie. This song is called He Lives in You, and it fits the first movie so much that they had to include it in its sequel and other stuff. Time passes and Kiara grows up a little bit. She comes out of the cave excited. She wants to go out and play, but Simba stops her. He does the whole overprotective father things and then lets her go. Nala tells Simba that Kiara is just like him and he should stop being overprotective. But it does not stop him from telling Timon and Pumbaa to keep an eye on Kiara. Kiara realizes it, and when Timon and Pumbaa are not paying attention, she goes out of Pride Lands. Kiara reaches the Outlands and meets a male cub named Kovu. At first they are not fond of each other, but after an encounter with crocodiles, they realize that they make a good team. They tell each other how good they were, while a lioness is secretly watching them. The cubs tell their names to each other, but Kiara is too friendly and that makes Kovu feel awkward. The lioness becomes angry when she hears the name Kiara. Kiara wants to play tag with Kovu, but Kovu seemingly doesn't even know what a game is. Then Simba shows up and roars at Kovu, an act that is messed up if you ask me. I know Simba just wants to protect his daughter, and he probably knows who Kovu is, but that does not justify trying to attack a cub. Even if he didn't want to attack Kovu and just wanted to scare him off, it is still questionable, because Kovu is just a cub and innocent. Some people say that Simba saw the lioness and he roared at her, but that does not seem like that to me. I am not trying to say that Simba is evil or something, because he definitely isn't, but he has some flaws that can make him unlikable sometimes. The lioness comes out of the grass and roars back at Simba. The name of this lioness is Zira, the antagonist of this movie and Scar's wife. Nobody ever directly said that Scar and Zira are mates, but later you will see a lion that clearly is the son of Scar and Zira. So even if Scar and Zira weren't married, they at least had a history at some point. And here I should mention a flaw in this movie that I agree that it is a big problem. And that flaw is that we never saw Scar and Zira together. She wasn't in the first Lion King movie because she obviously didn't exist at that point, and she is one gigantic retcon. But in this movie, we should have seen at least one flashback scene to establish her and say why she was nowhere to be found in the first movie. And it is something that this franchise does everything to avoid. Even The Lion Guard never did something like that. They just had Zira in one episode and that's it. Which is a decision that makes me mad. And it made some people theorize that Scar and Zira actually never met, or maybe they just had a brief moment together, but Zira became so obsessed with him that she started living a lie. Scar probably even didn't love Zira, but she believed that she was his queen, and now it's her duty to train the next in line for him. Which is an interesting theory that the more time passes, the more I believe it. And it kinda breaks my heart, because it is not how it works in my fantasies. I want villains to be deeper. I don't mean I want every single villain to be sympathetic. I just want some of them to have at least one single redeeming quality that doesn't make them sympathetic, but it just makes them a little bit deeper so that it would be more entertaining. I like to believe that the one single redeeming quality of Scar is being a lovely family man. You know, he could be the worst person you could imagine, but when it came to the family he chose, he could be the exact opposite of what people imagine of him. Scar hated his brother? Yeah, because he never chose to have a brother. But a wife and kids? That's a family that he chose to have. Imagine how cute it would be if Scar was mean to everyone and everyone would think that Scar is also abusive toward his own family, but then the audience would be surprised to see that Scar is actually kind to his family. Imagine Scar and Zira being evil but also madly in love with each other. Imagine those theories about Ahadi being abusive toward Scar being real, and Scar swore that he would never become like Ahadi. So as a result he became almost as good of a father as Mufasa was, and treated all his kids fairly, and didn't have a favorite child so that they wouldn't go through the hell that he went. But I know some people would also think that Scar being as bad of a father as Ahadi was is also an ironic but good story to tell. And also Zira just being a psychopath that thinks is Scar's queen despite the fact that she never was is also a creepy but cool story to tell. But my favorite is them being an evil but lovely family, and I wish to see Scar and Zira and their cubs together in an official project one day. But that's enough fanfiction rambling from me. Zira tells Simba that Kovu is her son and Scar's next in line. After a little bit of an argument, Zira and Simba pick up their cub and walk away. Again, a scene that is similar to the first movie but different at the same time. Simba wants to talk to Kiara, but unlike the first film, from the beginning it's obvious that Simba won't be hard on Kiara. After a generic father telling his kids that they could have died moment, we hear another music from The Lion King 2 that is easily as good as the music from The Lion King 1. And this music is kind of a combination of every lesson these two movies are trying to teach the audience, but mostly about forgiveness and circle of life. Unlike the first movie, this story has two sides. On the hero side we had a heartwarming scene, and now on the evil side we will have the exact opposite. We see a wasteland. A few lionesses are having a miserable life. Then we get introduced to Nuka, Zira's first son, and Vitani, Zira's daughter. Nuka just looks miserable. Skinny, ugly, not groomed, dirty. It just shows what living in this place does to a person. Later in this video I will say why despite all of these, Nuka is still my favorite Lion King character, but it is not the time yet. Nuka is complaining about why Kovu is having all the glory. Then he says that Kovu is not even Scar's son, which caught me off guard first time because both Nuka and Kovu look like Scar, but seemingly only Nuka is the star of Scar and Zira, and Kovu is seemingly adopted. In the first draft of this movie, Kovu was Scar's kid, but soon they realized that if he falls in love with Kiara, it would be incest, so they changed their mind immediately. Zira was supposed to tell Kovu that she actually robbed him from another pride because he looked like Scar and people would believe that he is Scar's son. But that scene was never made because they ran out of time. Nuka is the firstborn, but because he obviously has mental problems, he wasn't considered a good fit to be a king. So Kovu is Scar's next in line. There also is Vitani, but we were never told if she is older than Kovu or younger, or if she is also adopted or not. I mean, she doesn't look like Scar or Zira, so she probably is adopted. Nuka annoys Vitani. She tells him that he was supposed to keep an eye on Kovu, but Nuka didn't care. Zira and Kovu show up. Zira is angry at Nuka, and Nuka is really afraid of his mother. Kovu tells Zira that it's not Nuka's fault because he ran off himself. Then Zira shouts at Kovu. She tells Kovu that Simba is the one that killed Scar and banished him, which means either Zira is a liar or she doesn't really know what has happened. She wasn't there when the hyenas killed Scar, so she probably just saw Simba and thought that he was the one that killed Scar. And if she really loved Scar, then she really wouldn't be in a mentally healthy situation to believe what Simba says. And about being banished by Simba, most people will say those lionesses deserve to be banished because during Scar's rule, the Pride Lands became a wasteland, and if they were still loyal to him even after they realized that he killed Mufasa, then they are no doubt evil. But the thing is, because we never saw what happened between Lion King 1 and 2, then it could go any way that we want it to go. If you want this movie to be just a good versus evil story, then it can be that. But if you want this movie to be something deeper, then nothing stops you to believe that maybe before the Lion King 2, Simba did something not so heroic that the outlanders are justified to hate him. Some would say the fact that this movie has a lot of unanswered questions make this movie a bad one. But I say, sometimes it's more fun to fill the gaps yourself. I am not trying to say that Zira is an evil and Simba is the real bad guy. I just want to say that maybe there are things that we don't know. I am totally fine if in fiction, sometimes a good person does bad stuff, and sometimes an evil person does good stuff, because that's how we humans work. And here I am going off on a tangent again. Kovu tells Zira that Kiara didn't look evil, so he wanted to be friends with her. Zira is disgusted at first, but then she realizes that by getting close to Kiara, Kovu can get rid of Simba easily. So she tells Kovu that he is smart like Scar. Then she takes Kovu to their home. Then she sings him a lullaby that it's a miracle that Kovu could sleep to it because it's kinda creepy. It's Zira's villain song, but unlike Be Prepared, that was more cool and charismatic, this one is more creepy, which is very in character for Zira. When people talk about great Disney villains, the sequel exclusive villains are not usually mentioned. I think Zira has to be the one single exception for that. Zira is the only villain from a sequel that is a great villain if you ask me. And that's just because of how scary and determined she is. She may not be smart, but everything else makes her a good villain. I'm sure at least one kid couldn't sleep because of how scary Zira looked. And I just love how creepily obsessed Zira is. To people who think Scar is a great villain but Zira is not, I tell you this, Scar had his moments of doubt, regret, and fear. But Zira never had that. And unlike Scar, who needed to take advantage of the hyenas to achieve his goals, she is even dangerous without him. And her song shows what a heartless monster she is, which is again one way of having a great villain. We can also see that she isn't really proud of Nuka, as we see how she abuses him. Rafiki is talking to the spirit of Mufasa. He says that he is worried about Kovu because Zira is filling his heart with hatred. Mufasa indirectly tells Rafiki that this problem can be solved by making Kiara and Kovu fall in love. Rafiki thinks it's ridiculous, but he eventually agrees. In the first movie, it took half of the movie for a time skip, but here is where the Lion King 2 starts standing out on its own. It doesn't want to be just a retelling of the first movie, so this time, just after a few minutes, the main characters grow up. Kovu is an adolescent now, and Zira has seemingly turned him into a monster. Then we see Kiara. She has also grown up, which means she has to hunt on her own for the first time. One of the lionesses mentioned how much Kiara has grown. Some people say that this lioness is Sarabi, but it is not confirmed. Sarabi was supposed to have a role in this movie, but her voice actress sadly passed away. And because of that, Sarabi is probably dead as well. And this is also another thing that annoys me. They just act as if Sarabi never existed. If they just said in one line that Sarabi has passed away, it would be enough. But they didn't even do that. The Lion Guard didn't do it either. Couldn't they just have one episode that mentioned Sarabi? Mufasa was in a lot of episodes, then why couldn't Sarabi be there as well? Also, don't think that I hate the Lion Guard. I like that show, but I have some complaints about it. Kiara asks Simba to promise her to not send anyone to look after her. Simba says yes, but the moment Kiara and Nala leave, he sends Timon and Pumbaa to keep an eye on Kiara. It's getting annoying at this point. Kiara messes up a few times. When she's trying again, Nuka and Vitani go to the elephant graveyard to put 2 sticks on fire. Nuka says that the hyenas have left this place, which is the only acknowledgement the hyenas achieve. I think Bonsai was supposed to be in this movie, but the character was cut. I don't know if they have really left this place or did they just die in the fire in the last movie. The Lion Guard has some hyenas that could be the next generations of the main hyenas, but again nothing is confirmed. Also, Nuka is weirdly paranoid when he sees fire, which could mean he has a bad memory of it or something. I mean, his mane looks like it has been burnt once. Or who knows, maybe he saw the death of his father in the fire and maybe that trauma is why Nuka acts like this. But again, these are just a bunch of fan theories. Then they start a fire. Some people associate this scene with Nuka the most.
Roasty tasty princess.
Hey, is it hot in here or is that just me?
Kiara sees the fire and starts running away. Some people use this scene to say the animation of this movie is bad. I disagree with that, except for the fires. The animation of the fires are in fact really bad. When the fire grows, Zira tells Kovu to start his mission. Simba sees the fire and starts looking for Kiara. Kiara is trying to escape, but she passes out because it's hard to breathe in the smoke. Kovu approaches Kiara, and it looks like Kovu wants to kill her. But no, he actually saves her. But Simba being Simba, he is mad at Kovu. Kiara asks Simba why he broke his promise. Simba tells her it's a good thing that he did that. Then he says that she is not allowed to hunt anymore. And again Simba's attitude is getting more annoying the time passes. I know Simba just wants to protect Kiara, but the way he does it is wrong. He won't be able to protect Kiara all the time. One day he will die, then Kiara would be helpless. By not letting Kiara learn how to live on her own, he will doom her future. Kids should learn how to stand on their own feet, and they won't learn that if other people do everything for them. If Simba continued this bad manner, Kiara would never learn how to manage her own life, let alone an entire kingdom. I can easily see an alternate timeline in which Kiara would become an incompetent and unworthy queen after the death of Simba. Then Rafiki comes and indirectly roasts Simba by telling Kovu how dare he saved Kiara. Like, dude, he saved your daughter, why are you so mad at him? Simba asks Kovu why he saved Kiara. Kovu said that he left his pride and wants to join Simba's pride, and that he shouldn't punish him for the crimes that his parents have committed. Simba isn't happy, but others make him agree. He will let Kovu stay with them for a short while to make sure he means good, and then let him join the pride. When they reach Pride Rock, Simba doesn't let Kovu inside the cave, so he sleeps outside. Kiara comes and thanks Kovu. Kovu tells Kiara that she is really bad at hunting. She asks Kovu if he is any better. Kovu says yes, so Kiara asks him to teach her. Kovu agrees and Kiara enters the cave. Zira and Nuka were keeping an eye on Kovu. Nuka asks why didn't Kovu attack them. Zira tells him that it is all part of their plan. He will gain their trust and then he will attack them to catch them off guard. Then I don't know if Zira wanted to hit Nuka or just the branch that was behind him, but Nuka's reflexes were fast enough that he could dodge, so that his mother's claws won't tear his face apart. I think Zira has beaten up the poor guy so many times that he knows exactly when she wants to hit him. Simba has a nightmare about the death of Mufasa. He is still traumatized. He wakes up and takes a walk to the wall road. Kovu wants to attack Simba, but Kiara interrupts him. So Kovu starts Kiara's training, but Kiara is really bad at it. When Kovu tries to show Kiara how to hunt, they meet Timon and Pumbaa. They are trying to scare off birds, but they can't. So Kiara and Kovu help them. Then they start chasing the birds, and Kovu is discovering the concept of having fun. And it's the end of his villain arc. He was like evil for 5 minutes and done, that's it. He had fun for 1 minute and bam, he is a good guy now. Not that I'm complaining, it's just funny. Probably the way Zira treats her children, it's not impossible for Kovu to teach her the moment he could. Then they reach rhinos, so they run away. When they escape, Kiara kisses Kovu. It's supposed to be an accident, but it doesn't look accidental to me. Kovu and Kiara are stargazing. During it, Kiara mentions what Mufasa told Simba about the stars during the look at the stars scene, which leads to Kovu ask if Scar is up there as well. Kiara has nothing to say. Then Kovu says that Scar isn't his father, but he is still part of him. So Kiara starts comforting him. Simba was watching them from the above, and now he is asking his father for guidance. But that's not how it works. The spirits in this universe usually interact indirectly. That moment in The Lion King 1 that Mufasa directly talked to Simba was an exception, something that the Lion God completely forgets about. Nala joins him and tells him to get to know Kovu. Kovu wants to tell Kiara the truth, but he can't. When he wants to leave, Rafiki stops him and tells them to follow him. He takes them to a lovely place, and now we can hear a romantic song. This music is called Upendi, that means love. It's a good music, but not as good as the romantic song of the first movie. After that, they go back to Prologue, but this time Simba lets Kovu in the cave. Vitani is watching them afar and waiting for Kovu to kill Simba, but he doesn't do that. Vitani goes from heartbroken to mad instantly and tells Zira. The next day, Kovu wants to tell the truth to Kiara, but Simba interrupts him because he wants to talk to him. They take a walk. Simba is talking to Kovu, and it seems he's starting to trust him, and he's starting to let go of his hate. But that won't last for long. Zira realizes that Kovu wants to betray them, so she will burn the bridges for Kovu and kill Simba herself. The outlanders attack Simba, and Zira makes it look like Kovu was part of it. Nuka is the first to attack Simba, but he isn't good at fighting. Kovu is horrified. He is stuck between, and he doesn't know if he should help his family or do the right thing. He is frozen in his place for a few seconds. Then he tries to help Simba, but Vitani kicks him and knocks him out. Simba falls down, and the outlanders chase him. Simba needs to climb a dam made out of huge logs to escape. It's dangerous, but he has no choice. The outlanders try to chase him, but they won't take the risk. Kovu is up there. Zira tells Kovu to attack Simba, but he doesn't do that. When nobody dares to move, the one character that nobody considered brave does a brave move. Nuka is the only outlander that climbs the dam to get Simba. Now that Kovu is not willing to help, it's Nuka's time to shine. He gets Simba, but the log beneath him breaks and Nuka falls down and gets trapped under a log. Then another log falls on Nuka, while he can just helplessly watch. Kovu comes down and searches for Nuka. Zira pushes Kovu aside and digs the logs to find Nuka. She finds him, but barely alive.
I'm sorry, Mother. I tried.
Then he dies on his mother's hand. This is my favorite scene of this movie, and one of my main reasons why I consider this movie a misunderstood masterpiece, and why Nuka is my favorite Lion King character. Yes, this ugly idiot who stinks and can't do anything is my favorite. But why? Well, be patient and I tell you. First, I don't consider Nuka an evil character. Yeah, I know he was trying to kill Simba, who as far as we know is innocent. But the thing is, he has mental problems. He does not have the ability to think straight. He's basically a kid in the body of an adult. Kids believe anything their parents tell them. Yeah, Zira is evil, but what does Nuka know? When he does not have the ability to think for himself, why do you consider him evil? Nuka just wants attention and love from his mother. That's it. The reason he thought he should be king instead is because he wants his mother to notice him. The reason he wanted to kill Simba is because he wanted his mother to be proud of him. From his teenage years, or maybe even from the day he was born, he has been overlooked. He has been denied. He has been hated. He was overshadowed by his adopted younger brother through the entire film. He had to deal with an abusive mother. He was Zira's favorite punching bag. Zira just considered Nuka a burden. She treated him like anything but a son. And despite all that, Nuka still loved his mother no matter what. Everything he did was because of his mother. And no matter what, he never stopped fighting for what he desires. No matter how many times he failed, he tried again and again, and he finally kinda achieved what he wanted, but it cost him his life. He wanted the attention of his mother, and he received that by dying for her goals. When people talk about sad Disney deaths, they will never think about this moment, which makes me sad. This is probably the most underrated animated death of all time. And that's not because of how he dies, but because of what happens before and after his death. Death of Mufasa was tragic, yes, one of the most tragic deaths ever. But at least Mufasa's life was good. At least he was respected by a lot of people even after his death. But Nuka, as far as we know, the guy didn't have one happy day in his life. And the day that he had a little bit of a sense of accomplishment was the day that he died. And after he died, barely anyone cared for him. For just a few minutes, the outlanders mourned him, and that's it. Even in the Lion Guard at the final episode, they just mentioned the death of Zira. They acted as if Nuka never existed in the first place. And the fact that both in the Lion King universe and in real world barely anyone talks about this guy adds to the tragedy of it. And the other thing that makes Nuka interesting is his connection to both the main hero and the main villain of this franchise, Simba and Scar. It may not be obvious at first, but think about it. Nuka is kinda the anti-Simba. Simba was a prince with the best life. He was a little bit spoiled, but overall a good person, who after the death of his father, runs away from his home and starts a carefree life. He tries to forget his past life, but he can't. So eventually, he confronts his past and defeats his demons, and learns to accept the tragedies as parts of his life. Nuka is a prince that nobody knew he existed, and probably didn't have a good life. He has been denied, and because of that he is a little bit of a jerk, but not evil. After the death of his father, his life became even worse. He entered a new life that was hell. The past has obviously scarred him, but all he focuses now is his future. He will get his mother's attention one day. He will confront the one thing between him and his glorious future. But because he is alone, he fails. Simba was lucky to survive the tragedies and reach better days, but Nuka wasn't as lucky. Nuka also is a lot more similar to Scar than people give him credit for. Scar was overshadowed by his brother, so was Nuka. And Mufasa the Lion King movie is probably going to make them even more similar because seemingly Mufasa is also adopted. Scar probably had a bad father and Nuka had a bad mother. Nuka has mental problems. Scar was also supposed to be like that in the earlier drafts of the first movie. We don't know the dynamic of Scar and Nuka, but whatever it is, it will be interesting. If they never met, then again it helps Nuka to be more of an anti-Simba. If Scar was also abusive to Nuka, then it's ironic that Scar became the exact same thing that he hated and puts his own son in the same hell that he lived through. And if Scar was a good father, then it would be heartwarming. Ahadi was a bad father, then Scar would be like anything but Ahadi. Scar knows how hard it is to have a bad father, so he made sure that Nuka won't go through the same hell that he went through. And then his death would be more tragic, and again it would go more the anti-Simba way. And then if we consider the fan theory that Uru was the only family member that cared for Scar, then Scar to Nuka would be what Uru was to Scar. And if Nuka didn't die, he would have probably do the same thing to Kovu that Scar did to Mufasa. Both Scar and Nuka couldn't let go of their hatred and jealousy, and that ultimately doomed both of them. Scar and Nuka both tried to change their destiny but died as a result. I could go on, but I have already gone the fanfiction route, so I will stop there. So, why is Nuka one of my favorite fictional characters ever? Because I feel sorry for the guy. There was a deleted scene in which Nuka would say, "So I finally got your attention, didn't I?" And then Zira would smile at him before Nuka died. And some people wanted it to be part of the final product, but I have to disagree. Nuka and Zira talked more with their eyes than their mouths, in a more show don't tell type of way, which as far as I know is actually a good thing. Nuka didn't need to say that line because you can already tell it from his eyes. If you ask me, he didn't even need to say the "sorry mom, I tried" line. Zira and Nuka could just say nothing, and just with their eyes and body language, this scene could still be as powerful as it is. But that's not the only part of the tragedy. The other side of this tragedy is Zira, this heartless monster that for a moment becomes a person. In the entire movie, she considered him a burden. He was not her son. He was just a failure. But you will only appreciate the things in your life the moment that you lose them. Only when Nuka died, Zira realized what she had. Nuka was the most loyal soldier a commander could have, and the most loyal son that a mother could ask for. But she realized that when she lost him. Only when Nuka died, Zira realized what a horrible mother she was. From her eyes, you can tell how much she regrets it. Later, she would put the blame on Kovu, but deep down, she knows that only she is the one to blame. Zira hits Kovu's face with her claws, marking a scar on his face, just like Scar himself. Then, she tells him that he killed his own brother and betrayed his pride, so Kovu runs away. And it makes me wonder, does Zira know the horrible stuff that Scar did? I mean, brother killing and betrayal is exactly the type of things that Scar would do. This is where some people would call Zira one of the biggest hypocrites ever. But her son is dead, so making sense is not her highest priority. And also, we don't know her past. Maybe she has a reason, or maybe she's just a hypocrite because of being evil. With her plans failing, now Zira commands her lionesses to start a war against Pride Lands. Being sneaky didn't work, so now she will achieve her goals by force. Kovu goes back to Pride Lands. Simba is on Pride Rock, and a lot of animals are around the Pride Rock. Kovu tries to tell him that he wasn't part of the ambush, but Simba isn't listening to anyone. He exiles Kovu. While Kovu is running away from the animals, we hear another good music. Kovu reaches a lake, but instead of his own reflection, he sees Scar. So he runs away even further. Kiara begs Simba to reconsider, but Simba tells Kiara that she is not allowed to leave Pride Rock. Kiara enters the cave to cry, but she sees a hole at the back of the cave, so she escapes through that. She is looking for Kovu. She reaches the same lake, but she only sees half of her reflection. This movie actually has 2 love songs, and this one is actually really good. Depending on the day you ask me, sometimes I love this song even more than Can You Feel the Love Tonight. Yeah, this song is that good. During the song, Kiara and Kovu find each other. At the end of the song, they look at the water and they see that the halves of their reflections have made them complete. Kovu tells Kiara that they should run away together, but Kiara insists on going back. The outlanders are approaching Pride Lands. Timon and Pumbaa are fighting each other because they want to put the blame on each other for Kiara being missing. Simba enters the cave and realizes it, but he can't do anything at the moment because Zazu informed him that the outlanders are attacking. The war begins. Kiara and Kovu see it from afar and run towards them to stop the war. And unfortunately, I have to admit that Timon and Pumbaa are kinda ruining this scene. Their existence doesn't let you take the movie completely seriously, and this problem is obvious at this scene. It doesn't ruin the movie for me because I can ignore them. But I will understand if someone said that Timon and Pumbaa, the characters that are one of the best parts of the first movie, are the reason that they don't like the sequel. The glorious battle continues, but during it, one interesting thing happens.
Where's your pretty daughter, Nala? Vitani!
This part always makes me wonder, do Nala and Vitani have a history that we are not aware of? It could just be some trash talking before fighting, but the way Vitani talked to Nala and the way Nala called Vitani's name is weird. There is a special hate in their voice, as if they are more than just enemies. And it is where I have to enter the realm of fanfiction again. The story is that Nala and Vitani are related. Some say that Vitani is Nala's little sister, daughter of Serafina and Scar, and either Serafina died while giving birth to Vitani, or it led to Scar being abusive to Serafina, and that's why Nala hates Vitani. But the other theory, which is much darker, is that Vitani is the daughter of Scar and Nala. Some fans theorize that the deleted scene madness of King Scar actually happened in the lore. But it happened even more than that, and Nala ended up having a cup with a person that she hates, and maybe she even went through hell because of that. Of course, this is just a theory, and I don't 100% believe in it. But I still think there is something that we don't know. After a while, the soldiers stop fighting because the leaders want to finish the war with a 1v1 fight. Simba and Zira want to kill each other, but Kiara and Kovu stop them. Kiara tells Simba that the outlanders are lions just like them, so they shouldn't fight them. And that is when Simba realizes that he was also a hypocrite. Earlier in the movie, he sings a song about how everyone are equal and that they are all part of the circle of life. But he just didn't consider the outlanders as one of them. It could be because the outlanders are bad people, but again, we don't know their past. But what matters now is that Simba is willing to forgive and forget. Not Zira though. She commands Vitani to attack, but Vitani, for once in her life, doesn't listen to her mother. She is moved by Kiara's speech. And also, the death of her brother could also be part of the reason, as she might have realized that by continuing their hate, they will lose even more. Vitani joins Kovu and Kiara. Zira sends a death threat to Vitani. That is when the other outlanders also join Kovu and Kiara. They realize that Zira is a selfish leader who only cares about herself and doesn't even have mercy on her own children. Zira is even more mad now and tries to attack Simba, but Kiara tackles her and they fall down. Kiara manages to save herself, but Zira is falling into a river. Kiara wants to help her, but Zira rejects it. Ultimately, Zira falls to her death with a smile on her face. There is a deleted scene that tells why she is smiling, but it surrounds a topic that YouTube is sensitive to it, so let's just say Zira would rather die than being saved by her enemy. Simba helps Kiara climb her way back and they end the war. Simba accepts Kovu and invites all the outlanders to become Pridelanders. Now the final scene. All the lionesses, Pridelander and Outlander are gathered. Simba and Nala are going to make it official that Kovu and Kiara are the future king and queen of the Prologue land. Simba and Nala go in front of all the animals as the lionesses bow to them. Kiara and Kovu follow them. Simba roars, then Kovu roars, then all four of them roar. The other lionesses roar as well. The animals cheer. The spirit of Mufasa finally talks. He tells Simba how proud he is, and he agrees that they are all one. During this final scene, we hear a non-vocal version of We Are One, and this version of it is my favorite music from this franchise. There is a beauty in this song, there is a relaxation in this song, there is a bittersweetness in this song. It kinda gives you all the feelings that the movie was trying to give you, and I love it for it. So here we are. As you can see, this is a flawed movie, but it is also full of little moments that you can really appreciate. Even though I agree that this is not a perfect movie, I don't agree that this movie is bad. It has flaws, but it's overall a good movie. One of the complaints about this movie is how some of the characters are sidelined and only Simba, Kiara and Kovu are important. And to that, I have to say that even in the first movie, they were sidelined. In the first movie, Simba was the only main character. Other characters were important in their own way, but only Simba is the one that is in almost every scene. I have also heard from people that the voice acting, animation and soundtrack of this movie isn't good. But again I disagree. They are almost as good. The presentation of the first movie is superior, but by only a small margin. And also, I love the music of it. There are a few that aren't as good, but there are musics in it that I love as much as the musics from The Lion King 1. And also the voice acting of this movie isn't bad, it's actually good, especially Zira's voice actress, she really did a good job. I have also heard the characterizations isn't good, but again, I don't get it. Characters of the first movie weren't that deep either, and that's why I love them because of their simplicity. Simba is too paranoid in The Lion King 2, but he has a good reason for that, and he eventually became a better person. Kiara and Kovu are also good characters, and I also talked for a long time why I consider Nuka a good character, and I also said why Zira is also a great villain. And the other characters did what they needed to do. But the biggest complaint I hear about this movie is how it is just a retelling of the first movie, and this is what I will always disagree with. The Lion King 2 is not a retelling of The Lion King 1. It is a continuation of it. The first movie is about accepting your tragedies as part of you. But one thing that movie didn't tell you is not letting your tragedies become all of you. It should be part of you, but not all of you. You shouldn't let your trauma tell you what decision you should make. You should learn from your trauma to make a better decision. You should learn to let go of your hate, or else it will consume you. This is the next level of what you learned from the first movie. And even if you still think these are all the same lessons from the first movie, then it's still good. These are important things to learn because lives are saved or doomed because of it. But again, it is not just a retelling. Lion King 1 made the foundation, and the Lion King 2 strengthened those foundations. Also, people say this movie is just Romeo and Juliet but bad, but I have to disagree with that. I actually think The Lion King 2 is an improvement of Romeo and Juliet, because in this one you actually see the point of the parents as well. And yeah, Romeo and Juliet is kind of a depressing story, but The Lion King 2 is a tragedy that you can learn from it. It's a story that you will feel better by watching it. The last common complaint I hear about this movie is how the final war ended out of nowhere. But I say that's a good thing. The world we live in is a horrible place sometimes, a world that is at war sometimes. Innocent people die because of hate. This world would be a better place if, just like this movie, people would just let go of their hate.